everyone, Lucy here. Hope you had a good New Year. Hope you're all safe, warm, doing well. If you're sick, I hope you're getting better. If you're watching, thank you! Appreciate that. But on to our next installment of The Valley of the Dolls, where I left in my last installment and was preparing to meet Lyon Burke. And George Bellows had just asked Anne to lunch and had described to her what life in the office may be like if and when, rather, oh, forget the if, the when, of Helen Lawson coming into the office because of rehearsals of Hit the Sky. I'm losing it, aren't I? Anyhow, so, on to Lyon Burke. Ooh. The receptionist was wearing a tight new plaid. The junior secretary's pompadour was 2 inches higher. Even Miss Steinberg had broken out with last spring's navy suit. Anne sat in her cubbyhole outside Henry's office and tried to concentrate on the mail. But like the others, her attention was riveted on the door. He arrived at 11 o'clock. With all the office gossip and speculation, she was still unprepared for anyone as striking as Lyon Burke. Henry Bellamy was a tall man, but Lyon Burke towered over him by a good 3 inches. His hair was Indian black, and his skin seemed burned into a permanent tan. Henry bristled with unconcealed pride as he led Lyon around and performed introductions. The receptionist colored visibly when she shook his hand. The junior secretary simpered, and Miss Steinberg was absolutely kittenish in her excitement. For the first time, Anne was grateful for her rigid New England reserve. She knew she presented a calm she did not feel as Lyon Burke took her hand. "Henry hasn't stopped talking about you. Now that we meet, it's quite easy to understand." The English accent was definitely an asset. Anne managed a gracious answer and was grateful when Henry Bellamy steered Lyon towards the newly decorated office. "Anne, you come in with us," Henry ordered. "It's overwhelming," Lyon said. "Makes one a bit apprehensive of the work expected in return." He eased into a chair and smiled lazily. Anne suddenly understood what Miss Steinberg meant. Lyon Burke did smile at everyone, and that easy smile was impenetrable. Henry beamed paternally. "Just be the same lazy bum you were before you left, and I'll redecorate for you every year. Now, let's get down to cases. Anne, Lyon needs an apartment. He's staying with me until he gets set," Henry explained. "Would you believe it? We couldn't get him a hotel room." She believed it, but she wondered why it should concern her. "I want you to find him a place." "You want me to find Mr. Burke an apartment?" "Sure you can do it," Henry said. "That's part of being more than a secretary." This time Lyon laughed heartily. "She's a beauty, Henry. She's everything you said. But she isn't Houdini." He winked at Anne. "Henry's living very sheltered life. He hasn't looked for a flat in New York lately." Henry shook his head. "Listen, this girl arrived here 2 months ago, and she didn't know 7th Avenue from Broadway. She not only found an apartment the first day, but landed this job and has me eating out of her hand. Well, mine isn't really an apartment. It's very small." His direct gaze was unsettling. "My dear Anne, after some of those bombed-out places I slept in during the war, anything with a ceiling looks like the Ritz." "Anne will come up with something," Henry insisted. "Try for the East Side. Living room, bedroom, bath, and kitchen, furnished, about $150 a month. Go to 175 if you have to. Start in right away this afternoon. Take tomorrow off. Take as long as you need. But don't come back until you have the apartment." "Henry, we may never see this girl again," Lyon warned. "My money's on Anne. She'll come up with something." Her room was on the second floor of the brownstone. Today, the 2 flights suddenly seemed insurmountable. She stood at the landing, holding the battered New York Times. She had spent the afternoon visiting every apartment listed, and they had all been taken. Her feet ached. She had dressed that morning for the office, not for apartment hunting. Tomorrow she'd get an early start, in flat heels. Before she tackled the stairs, she knocked at Neely's door. There was no answer. She plodded up the shaky stairs and let herself into the room. She was grateful to hear steam hissing through the ancient radiator. Regardless of Lyon Burke's "I'll take anything" attitude, she couldn't quite visualize him in a room like this. Not that it was a bad room. It was clean and conveniently located. Of course, compared to her spacious bedroom in Lawrenceville, it was an awful room. The lumpy studio bed looked as if it might not last another year. Sometimes she wondered how many people had slept on it. Hundreds, perhaps. But she didn't know them, and perhaps it was just this anonymity that made it her bed. As long as she paid her rent, everything in this room belonged to her. The small, battered night table, crisscrossed with scratches and old cigarette burns. The bureau with the 3 doors that had to be left slightly open because they stuck if they were closed, and if you pulled too hard, the knobs came off. And the pregnant easy chair, its lowered belly bulging with springs that just longed to burst through. It could be made attractive, but there was never enough money at the end of the week. She was determined not to touch the $5,000 she had in the bank. She was still paying off her Bloomingdale bill for the good black dress and the good black evening coat. She heard the familiar knock and called, "I'm in," without looking up. Neely entered and flopped on the chair, which groaned and came perilously close to disemboweling itself. "What's with the ads in the Times? Thinking of moving?" When Anne explained her new assignment, Neely laughed out loud. "You mean he doesn't want a terrace thrown in, along with about 4 walk-in closets?" Then, dismissing the incident as impossible and thereby closed, she turned to the important matter. "Anne, did you get a chance to talk about it today?" It was a favor Neely had been hammering at for 2 weeks. "Neely, how could I? Today of all days, and with Lyon Burke coming back." "But we've got to get in to Hit the Sky. For some crazy reason, Helen Lawson seems to like our act. We've been called back to audition 3 times. And she was there at all the auditions. No, just one word from Henry Bellamy would cinch it." "We" meant Neely and her 2 partners. Neely's formal name was Ethel Agnes O'Neill. "Isn't that a pistol?" she had exclaimed. But the nickname of Neely had stuck since childhood, and since she was 1/3 of a dance team called the Gaucheros, there was no need to do anything about unwieldy names. Anne's acquaintance with Neely had begun with a casual nod in the hall and had rapidly moved into a warm friendship. Neely looked like a gurgling, exuberant teenager. She had a stub nose, large brown eyes, freckles, and curly brown hair. And in fact, Neely was a teenager who had toured in vaudeville since she was 7. It was hard to think of Neely as a performer, but one night she had dragged Anne along on a club date at a midtown hotel. And there a strange transformation had taken place. The freckles vanished under a thick coat of grease paint, and the childish figure matured with the help of a sleazy sequin dress. It was a passable, pedestrian kind of act. 2 men in frayed sombrero hats and tight pants gyrating with the inevitable foot-stamping and finger-clicking designed to pass for Spanish dancing. Anne had seen similar acts in vaudeville back home, but she had never seen anyone like Neely. She wasn't sure whether Neely was exceptionally good or outrageously bad. She never actually became a part of the Gaucheros. She danced in time with them, spun with them, and bowed with them, but it wasn't a trio. We watched only Neely. But without the costume and the makeup, sitting on the sagging chair, Neely was just an eager 17-year-old girl, the first real friend Anne had ever known. "I wish I could help you, Neely, but I can't go to Mr. Bellamy with a personal matter. Our relationship is strictly business." "So what? Everyone in town knows he was Helen Lawson's lover way back, and that she still listens to everything he says." "He was what?" her lover, her guy. Don't tell me you didn't know. Neely, where did you hear a silly thing like that? Silly cheese! You mean nobody told you about it? It was a long time ago, and she's had 3 husbands since then, but they were the hottest item around for years. Why do you think I've been on your neck about talking to Bellamy? Can you mention it to him tomorrow? I'll be apartment hunting tomorrow. And Neely, I've told you, it just isn't right bringing your personal life into the office. Neely sighed. Those fancy manners are gonna stand in your way, Anne. You gotta go in a direct line for the thing you want. Come right out and ask for it. And what happens if you get turned down? Neely shrugged. So what? You're no worse off than if you haven't asked. At least this way you give yourself a 50-50 chance. Anne smiled at Neely's logic. Neely had no education, but she had the inborn intelligence of a mongrel puppy, plus the added sparkle that causes one puppy to stand out in a litter. This puppy was clumsy, frank, and eager, with a streak of unexpected worldliness running through her innocence. And I'm going to stop right there. We'll find out a little bit more about Neely's background with the next installment. But the word sparkle has been invoked already. You know, she's just shown up and we've got the word sparkle. Sparkle, Neely, sparkle! Woo! And we'll find out more about the apartment hunting. And I won't trip over as many words as I did, although I'm rather proud that I didn't trip over impenetrable or insurmountable. So, next time, more on Neely, more on the apartment. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Wear a mask. Okay? Get vaxxed. Get boosted. Take care of yourself, and you'll be taking care of others. Bye now.